It was a perfect autumn afternoon when friends and family gathered at an idyllic countryside estate to celebrate the wedding of Nathan and Sarah, a couple whose love story appeared flawless to everyone around them. Sarah, glowing in her ivory gown, stood by Nathan, a tall, charming man who had been the life of every room he walked into. His best man, James, his childhood friend, was by his side throughout the day, cracking jokes and offering support. But what the guests didn't know was that the bonds of brotherhood between Nathan and James hid a more intimate and dangerous secret. Nathan and James had been involved in a romantic affair for months, a relationship unknown even to Nathan's closest confidants. While Nathan loved Sarah, his connection to James ran deep, fueled by years of friendship, shared experiences, and their secret romance. As the evening wore on, Sarah noticed subtle signs that disturbed her. Nathan and James exchanged looks she couldn't quite interpret, and there was an unusual tension between them. She had never been the jealous type, but something about the way they interacted made her stomach knot with unease. She decided to ignore it, attributing it to wedding nerves, until the late hours of the night, when she walked in on a moment that would change everything. After the reception had quieted down, and most of the guests were either asleep or heading home, Sarah was eager to enjoy the romantic first night with her new husband. But when she returned to their bridal suite after greeting some late guests, she found Nathan and James in a compromising position, their lips locked in a passionate embrace. For a brief moment, she froze, disbelief overwhelming her. This couldn't be happening, not on her wedding night. Her world crumbled in an instant. Anger, betrayal, and devastation surged through her. Nathan, the man she thought she knew, had lied to her, lived a double life with his best man. Sarah's heart raced as she screamed at the two men, demanding answers. The truth spilled out in a chaotic mix of tears, guilt, and anger. Nathan admitted to the affair, but before any resolution could be reached, emotions spiraled out of control. What started as a verbal confrontation escalated quickly. Nathan, desperate to explain, tried to calm Sarah down, but she was inconsolable. James, in his own attempt to protect Nathan, intervened, further infuriating Sarah, who saw him as the reason her marriage had been a lie. In the heat of the moment, Nathan and James, already filled with shame and fear of exposure, lashed out, and the situation turned violent. As the tension boiled over, Sarah, overcome with rage, grabbed a nearby vase and hurled it toward James. The vase shattered, but in that split second, the altercation took a deadly turn. James, in an attempt to defend himself, pushed Sarah, causing her to fall backward and hit her head against a sharp corner of a dresser. The impact was brutal. Blood began to pool beneath her as she lay motionless on the floor. Nathan dropped to his knees in horror, cradling Sarah's lifeless body, his wedding night now drenched in blood. James, equally stunned, backed away, his face pale, hands trembling. Panic set in as they realized what had happened. A woman was dead, and the guilt hung heavy over them both. Desperate to cover up the crime, the two men hastily tried to concoct a story. Nathan's mind raced, but it was useless, there was no escape. By the time the police arrived, alerted by other guests who had heard the commotion, the scene was chaotic. Nathan was found clutching his dead bride, while James, shaking, could barely speak. The investigation that followed uncovered everything: the affair, the fight, the tragic accident. Nathan and James were arrested and charged. The trial was a media sensation. The groom who had betrayed his bride, the best man who became a lover, and the beautiful young bride who had died in a moment of rage, it was a story that captivated the nation. In court, Nathan expressed deep remorse for the affair and for Sarah's death. He pleaded guilty to manslaughter, while James, whose push had caused Sarah's fatal fall, was also convicted. Both men were sentenced to prison, their lives forever altered by the events of that fateful night. Years later, people still spoke of the tragedy. The wedding that had begun with joy ended in devastation, leaving families torn apart and lives ruined. Nathan and James, once inseparable as friends and lovers, were separated by prison walls and the weight of guilt that would follow them forever. The story of Nathan, Sarah, and James serves as a chilling reminder of the destructive power of secrets, lies, and betrayal. What should have been the happiest night of their lives turned into a horrific nightmare, all because of a secret that couldn't be kept hidden.